This is a Python training program, right? We'll understand how Python language works. We'll understand, every concept of Python language, and we'll see how Python works as part of, let's say, Django framework, and how ultimately Python is being used as part of data sciences and all that. Right? Other concepts where Python can be used. We will introduce that also. But in this very session, we'll talk about how this language works, right? How we can write effective Python scripts, right? Here we call it as scripts, right? So we'll start with a basic introduction to the kind of a basic syntax of a Python language. As part of every language you have got types, values, how objects work, how each and everything is an object in Python, right? How to use control statement, how to use conditionals, how to use loops, how to create functions, right? We'll go till databases, algorithm, data structures also. We'll also have to talk about one Python unique object model, right? I'll introduce that also, and how it relates to just everything that we have in this language. There is something called as object model, which is unique in Python. Then we have got generators, decorators, we have simple, and we have kind of a module system. We call it as a powerful module system to ultimately create web application in Python, right? So we'll understand how to use Python to write efficient, effective scripts, right? That is what we are going to talk about, right? Here everything is a script, everything is an object, how they relate to different types and values, how like we have conditional loops, functions, algorithm, databases in every language. Similar to that we have it in Python also. Now we will talk about Python 3 version, not 2 version. See, Python 3 version is considered to be a modern object oriented scripting language. Everything will revolve around object only, right? It is not a programming language, it is called as a scripting language. Everything will be written as part of a script. If you have heard about Unix script that runs on server, somehow we are going to write that only, but in a very simpler way. We'll talk in a very simpler way how methods, classes, functions, objects, how data types, how basic code is being written down, right? First thing first, who developed this language, right? So who actually developed this language? See, this language was actually developed in late 1980s, 1989 basically, and there was a Dutch research programmer named as Guido van Rossum, who actually created this language, or rather that very person this very person wrote a first Python interpreter, right? Every language actually needs the interpreter. Java has got JVM, similarly Python has got an interpreter, and I'll tell you about that also. But it is being said that that this very person created a first interpreter in the Christmas holidays in 1989, and then there was this flying circle named by the name Monty's Python. So this very person just named Python as a reference to that flying circle activity that that was organized by Monty Python, right? So this person Guido, it renames Python's principal author, right? Principal author to this very day. Principal author meaning they started calling this language as benevolent dictator for life. Kind of anyone can add anything to make this language more efficient, right? So Python community affectionately refers to this very person as benevolent dictator for life, because this very person named Guido, he created Python language. So Python language has got certain philosophies before we learn each and every concept, and you will find this philosophy applied to every concept in Python. Right? First is that beautiful is better than ugly. What they are trying to say is it is always good to, it is always a good idea to make your code elegant and readable. Right? Your code should be elegant and readable. So they name this philosophy as beautiful is better than ugly. Then they said explicit is better than implicit. What is explicit? Which you call it. Implicit, what happens automatically. Right? They said it is better that you call it. Or what the justification that they gave is, don't make your readers guess what your code does. Make it obvious to them. Again, I am saying it. Don't allow or make or force your readers to guess. Tell your readers that this is what my code does. Simple is better than complex. If you can make it simple, there's nothing like that. Complex is better than complicated. If complexity is necessary, then don't complicate it. Right? Simple is better than complex. Complex is better than complicated. Right? Don't complicate the code. Ultimately, readability counts. As a casual reader, right, with a good understanding of a Python language, you should always be able to understand the code with a minimal amount of effort, because they have tried to create a very easy language to understand. I mean, and we need to understand all the concepts, but they have tried that as a reader, if I have a good understanding of Python language, I will be able to write the code with a minimal amount of effort. Right? So these are certain philosophies that were being adopted while writing down a Python language. Right? There are others also that you can import in your code. I'll tell you how to import that into your own code also. Right? So this is a small philosophy about an author who created this language. Then comes, which version are we, going to work on? There is, this is very important in Python. We are in Python 3.9 right now. Latest release is 3.9. But what Python community calls it, that this very version, Python 3, actually they call it as Python 3 version. It is very close to, what this person called Guido, that is the ideal vision for Python, what this person imagined, Python 3. That is the reason all the code which is written in Python 2, now they want to import to Python 3. Right? So all the data types, all the functions, all the classes, now they are built as part of that unique object model of Python. Python 3 is that powerful. Again, I am saying it. All data types, all classes, all functions, right, they are now built in Python. Right? For example, I'll show you, I'll write scripts for you. In Python 2 there was a keyword called print which did not require parenthesis in Python 2, but in Python 3 it became a function, and a function requires a parenthesis. Right? So small changes, but there are many changes, and Python 3 is considered to be the one that every project should be using. For example, Python 2 had separate types for integers and long integers like Java has. Right? Python 3 says, you should have only one integer type. Why one integer type? You'll get that answer also. Right? So these difference also we should know, that Python 2 had different data types for different types of different kinds of data that we may come across in our project. For example, apart from this int and long thing in Python 2, right, Python 2 had separate types for string also. You know, a different string for Unicode character, a different string for ASCII code, a different string for, you know, there is this, you know, unique identifier APID data. So a type of a string is different for different kind of a format, right? And in Python 3 they said everything will be in Unicode, actually UTF-8 or Unicode format. Why? Because now every browser supports it, every IDE supports it, right? There is no conflict. Then why to have a string for different, you know, kind of formats which browsers can have? And if for a security purpose, if somebody needs APID, then they have feature for that also, right? So we are going to talk about Python 3. As I told you, latest version right now is Python 3.9. As and when the new features will come in, we'll add that also. But there is one thing that you should know, that Python 3 is also, you know, in market since last 10 years. And the best part about Python is, you know, they try to diminish or finish out the legacy code by giving you the appropriate support with the current, you know, API support. So remove the legacy code, introduce the new one. That is again a best feature about Python. So we will recommend that you, first of all, you know, every project should use Python 3 now, because there is no point of using Python 2, right? So this is about basic introduction in Python. And you know, Python is a very rich language, so we are going to cover all the concepts, right? After that, you know, documentation is also available. I'll tell you where it is. Documentation is exhaustive, you know, you can become familiar with that. So, you know, before we start, Python is also known as a very powerful and a very versatile kind of a language, because you can do everything in a kind of a simpler way, which I'll tell you how, you know. So it's considered to be a very powerful and a very versatile programming language. And you know, it is supported on all operating system, or what they call it as, they are supported virtually on all operating system, Windows, Mac, Ubuntu and Linux. You know, support is there, right? And we are going to create a small web application also. So that is a little introduction about Python, right? What Python does, who created Python, now who supports Python, right? What is the philosophy behind Python, right? What we have just talked about: object model, conditional loops, function control statements, objects, scripts, everything is a script, right? Generators, decorators, you know, a powerful module system, and we will create a web application also, right? And we will talk about Django and other frameworks also as part of this course, right? So this is a basic introduction. Then comes, we need to download Python in local. Let's set the environment right. So you need a Python to install in your local, and I am using this editor called Komodo edit. You can use that also. The best part about Komodo edit is it is linked with Git, so your code gets committed automatically, right? I'll come to that. Or if you want to use Visual Studio, you can use that also. We will support both of them, right? But from where shall I download Python? So simple, you know, for Windows, Mac, they recognize the operating system, right? So what they need to do is, they recognize the operating system, and basically to download Python, all you need to do is go to python.org and thereafter downloads. The moment you click this, see, download Python 3.9 version as of now. If you click this, it will come in your local. You can install this on Windows. If you have Mac, you can choose Mac. If you have Linux, you can choose Linux. Right? Once you click it, you'll get it in your local. Right? Right? Once you click it, you'll get it in your local. Something like this. Right? Once you install it, click next, and this will be installed in your local. So this is from where you can download Python. Right? Nothing special it will ask. It will simply download the same. But always remember, please download 3.3 version only. 3.9 is later, so please download that only. You should know Python 2 is for legacy systems, for legacy development. And now everybody moves to Python 3. Right? After you have installed it, it will come to your local. I will first check the version once I have the editor with me. Now, as I told you, I am using Komodo edit, which is given to us by ActiveState. So all you need to do is type activestate.com Komodo edit. Right? If you enter this, this will give you a link to download Komodo edit. Right? This one. Right? activestate.com. Right? This one. Products, Komodo edit, downloads, edit. Right? 64-bit Windows. Do download the edit version only. See, now the only issue with this editor is, this is not an issue, this is just a one-time activity, which is you can download it, but it is always better you create an account on ActiveState. Right? Because there is one YAML file which it creates. Right? So I have created my account. It will just ask you email address, password, and then it will get your email confirmation. So please do create an account on this, because this Komodo edit has to configure the environment for you automatically. So you need two things. One, download it. Click over here, Windows, Mac, Linux. The moment you do it, it will come in your local like this. Right? Will not ask you anything. Click next, and it will be done. And don't forget to create an account. Why? Because it will give you two URLs. Right? Two URLs to kind of configure your entire environment. Right? So that you need to do. After you download it, first of all, and Komodo edit is a free version. Right? Right? There is a paid version also, but we are okay with the free version. Right? So once you download it, this is how Komodo edit will look like. Komodo IDE. Right? It will open, and I am going to create project, write all Python scripts here only. Right? Just wait for a second. This editor will come up. Right? Right? I did not click it correctly. Oh, sorry, it was there. I forgot. It was there. So this is how your project will look like. Right? This you need to know how to configure this. Then you can, this color scheme, basic things can be done from preferences, right? If you go to appearance, what I have done is this Redmond color scheme. You can choose your own color scheme however you like it, right? Indentations can be set. Then thereafter, internationalization. You are using Python 3, make sure it is set to UTF-8, and default encoding is also UTF-8. I told you Unicode format, right? It supports, this is supported by all browsers, supported by all systems, right? So colors can be set from here, right? And this, don't forget to do that. The moment we create a web application, UTF-8 format will be accepted, right? So we need to do that, these two things. So after you do that, right, date is going to be in this format. So you can choose a date. I said I'm okay with this. Day, month, date, hour, minute, seconds, year, right? After I do these two activities, I can delete this. What I did was, I wanted a shortcut, I deleted this run -r. I wanted a shortcut to run my application, right? So I can delete that, I can create a new. So it says you want to remove this. This is something that I created by myself. We need to create it. This is a special command that we will run. We will run the Python interpreter with this very command, right? So if I remove this, I said remove, so that interpreter is gone. And to create this, you need to do add command. Right now, see, you want to create a command. Everything is run by this particular, like node executed by node command. Python script is executed by this. Thereafter, what will you give? What will you give? File name will be given. So I said file path should be given. Now in Python, file path should be given in double quotes, right? You can name anything. I said just name it like run -r. You can name it anything, it does not matter, just that this particular command will be recognized by this name, right? But make sure we put py space double quotes file path, otherwise the Python script will not work. Then we need to come to the advanced option, right? So once I have done with that, in the here I need to mention the directory path which my file path will be needing. So in advanced option, just press the play button and select the directory path. Actually this is known as key binding, actually binding the file with the directory. They call it as key binding. Then we need to do this, how to add a new key sequence. For example, I need to create a shortcut, right? For example, I said Control R, right? Now I want this code to run when I click Control R, or any shortcut whichever you want to give, right? I gave a shortcut also. So the moment I say OK, after mentioning how a script will be executed, how it should be named, which directory it should look into, and what is a key sequence for a key binding, for the entire key binding, right? I said OK, and you can see a new command is added over here. We will add more commands also, right? I have created, this is my local username workspace. I created a project. You can also simply create a project. Thereafter you can start creating a script file. For example, I could have said first Python script, for example, and it should end with py. Right, I created this file. Let's see whether this entire thing is working or not. And this ActiveState.yaml will be managed by ActiveState after you create the account. Right, so nothing, install the Komodo edit, create the account, and it will ask you to do two URL execution, which I'll tell you, which will make sure that background this happens automatically. You don't have to worry about that. But let's see how this works. So I've got this hash sign or a pound sign. Since this is a script, it might run in the Unix environment also, Linux environment, Mac environment also. So who will run this script? So USR has got a bin folder has got a env, and I know I have downloaded Python 3. So to all, apart from Windows, if my project has to go on any environment, this is the one which will execute the entire Python code, Python script. Right, thereafter we can put a comment also. Every company does that, please, this is a copyright version number. For example, we can write something like this. I mean, whatever you want to write, wisdom trainings, let's say. Right, so this is a comment that we gave. Right, after that I can simply check the version of Python that I am using. Right, I could have checked it simply, but actually import keyword is there in Python also. There is a module called platform that I loaded. There is a function called print with parentheses. String can be done with single quotes or double quote. And here I could have said we are using Python version. Right, and I said, this figure bracket or curly braces, or and everything is an object in Python. So on this very object I called a function called format. In the format function I loaded this module, and this module has got a function called Python version. This will help me check the current version of Python I have in my local. Right, so simple 2-line of a script. Loaded a module, setting up the environment for Mac, for Linux, for Ubuntu. For Windows this is not required, but application will work on actually server only. Thereafter you can mention the comments. Comments happens via hash sign or a pound sign. Hash sign plus exclamation mark is known as hash bang. I'll tell you about this also. Hash bang, some books call it as shebang also. Right, where we mention the interpreter name. Right, now how to run this? Either I can double click this, or I can do that shortcut Control R. After I saved it, I said Control R. Right, you see we are using the Python version 3.9.0. So I did just Control R, and it printed the output for us. Right, so this is just one script that we have run. Right, we will talk more about each and every concept of Python in the coming classes. Here, as part of this very session, we have just tried to understand that Python, who created it, and what is being called to that very person, Guido. Right, this philosophy behind creating this language. What is the difference between Python 3 and Python 2? Now everything should be on Python 3 only. We should remember that Python 4 might come soon, but we'll update our course with that also, where the documentation resides, all Python documentation, everything is an object in Python, right? So we will talk about all these concepts, and you need to configure Python in your local, and you need to configure this ActiveState environment also in your local. Once you log into this environment, once you get these, I have created multiple projects. So to set up a runtime environment, you need to click over here. It will give you two URL, right? It will give you two URL. Right? Once it comes in your local, to activate the it is already set, right? So it is taking me to the previous versions, right? To activate these two commands, once you click on dev tools, you click this first command, just copy it, open the command prompt. It will not give you any error. So when you right click it, go to command prompt, just do this. So write cmd and type this, press enter, right? You copied this, and thereafter you come to command prompt and type this. It will install scripts that will work on all browsers. After you click this, after you are done this, do this state active, active Python, even this version also. It will make sure that your ActiveState YAML file gets updated every time, and every time your code will keep getting committed into this ActiveState, that git directory. It is further connected to git only, right? So it is not that complex. We just need to download first Python, then we need to download Komodo edit IDE, and then after creating a small account over here, it will give you two URLs to install, then you are done. So after this, we'll create projects, and we will create all script file to understand all concepts of Python. Further, we will understand these concepts of Python with data sciences and Django framework also, and other latest advancements that are coming in Python, right? This is just the basics for Python. All right, thank you.